Should the Dallas Cowboys consider giving Sam Williams more snaps in Week 11? All that and more in this episode of Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your
Locked
daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on
Cowboys.
Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. I am Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. He is Landon McCool. Check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. Landon, what's going on, sir?
Not much. It's question day. I'm excited. Let's not waste time. Let's get right into questions. Let's get through a ton of them if we can.
First question from Goran. He wants to know, I know you guys don't like the term starter for defensive linemen, but should Sam Williams see more snaps than any defensive end not named Tank Lawrence?
I do agree that I think he should get more snaps. I think he's been, progressively better and better and better, and he's just so dominant. I think he's also gotten some really good snaps inside. I mean, I think he got a sack last weekend, playing kind of more of a 3 technique against a guard. So I definitely agree that he should get an increase in snaps. I think it's kind of still tough to put him out there at as high a rate as maybe Dorrance Armstrong, because Dorrance Armstrong is going to be where he's supposed to be. And Sam's still kind of learning the position, but yeah, I mean, he's so talented that you need to find a way to try to maximize his snaps and then kind of continue to increase them as the season goes on.
Yeah, so here's the snaps over the last 3 weeks. 11, 14, 17. I think 17 is probably like the low number he should be at, but I don't think he should be more than 24, 25. So I think the Cowboys are kind of balancing it, finding the right range of snaps for him. But I do agree. Like, I'd like to see him more. It seems like whenever he's on the field, he makes plays. So I'm certainly encouraged.
Absolutely.
I could maybe scale back some Dorrance Armstrong snaps a little bit. Maybe.
I mean, I think there's lots of ways to find, him snaps without eating into someone else's snaps too. But yeah, my only concern, again, I think Sam Williams is a more talented player in some ways, but I think that, there's also some times where his youth shows, and he's, he has made some rookie mistakes and that sort of thing. So we just have to be careful not overexposing him.
Next question. A lot of people wanted to know about the offensive line. What's going to happen with Tyron Smith? We actually got some news yesterday, Landon, that the Cowboys are kind of done with the experiment of Jason Peters at left guard. Mike McCarthy revealed that he's been working at tackle. What does that tell us about maybe the long-term outlook for this Cowboys offensive line?
I mean, I think to me, it reads like they're planning to have Tyron Smith come in at left tackle, then kicking Tyler Smith into guard. The fact that they're starting to prep into getting Jason as the swing guy, maybe even with the thought that maybe a week or two before Tyron Smith comes in, they make a switch and Jason Peters is the starter at left tackle and Tyler is the starter at left guard. I think this is probably twofold. It's the combination of getting prepped for Tyron coming back, as I mentioned, and also McGovern has really struggled, it feels like, these last few weeks. So I think the idea of just kind of a rising tide lifting all ships by putting Tyler inside and then putting Peters in a natural spot while we're waiting for Tyron to come back. I mean, I think that makes an easy fix if they want to do that.
Yeah, and that would allow Connor McGovern to kind of go back into that swing offensive line role, but also go back to this fullback role, which, I mean, we can joke about, but the Cowboys have kind of missed that, having an offensive lineman that they can put at fullback and just bully teams that way. This is just my thought. I wonder if we'll see Tyler Smith takes snaps at left guard, maybe not full-time at left guard, but snaps at left guard after their Thanksgiving game. Once they have the 10-day break, that would mean, Tyron Smith might be practicing by that point, potentially. Does that seem like the right kind of time frame there?
Yeah, it does. All except for the fact that you have to play Dexter Lawrence on Thanksgiving Day, and
Well, I'm saying
that's a little
after that,
scary.
right? The next
Yeah, no,
one.
that's why I'm scared.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have Tyler Smith inside at
No.
guard versus Dexter Lawrence. So, but yes, I agree. I think that makes logical sense as far as the transition of all this.
Yeah. All right. Next one. Again, a couple people want to know, is this Mike McCarthy's most important 2-game stretch coming up of his coaching career? Question from Goran again. He wants to know, does he have to win both games to shake off the stigma that his teams can't win tough games versus good competition?
I mean, he's won the Super Bowl before, so I don't think that these 2 games are the most important games of his
Yeah,
career.
probably. Most important Cowboy games?
Maybe. I think the Cowboys need to win these games because they need to be in good playoff position.
They need to win the games.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, I don't think you need to add any other extra kind of motivation of good teams. And the whole argument about winning against good teams is like the line gets drawn wherever the line
Well,
gets drawn.
I saw a question in here. It's like the Cowboys have never won a big game with Mike McCarthy, and you think, well, it's really easy in hindsight to say, well, this game wasn't a big game, right? Like New England last year, you're beating the Patriots in New England. That was a big game at the time, right? We thought it was a big game, and the Cowboys won in overtime. They beat Minnesota in Minnesota with Cooper Rush. That was a big game. They beat Philadelphia at home on Sunday Night Football. That was a big game. Like, I don't know. That part is always strange.
They beat the Super Bowl champions and the Super Bowl runner-up. I mean, at the
mean,
time, those felt like big games.
Yeah, sure.
So both of which with their backup quarterback. So, I think that line gets drawn and redrawn. Sometimes hindsight, which doesn't
Right.
help the case. So, I think the Cowboys need to win because the Cowboys need to win.
I mean, there's a chance that like the Titans just beat the Packers here next week, and then the Eagles beat the Packers the following week, and Packers are 4-7, 4-8, and all of a sudden that Cowboys loss to Green Bay doesn't really look like a big game, even though at the time it felt like it. So I understand the question. I'm not poo-pooing it, but the biggest game is the next one. It's just the way it is in the NFL. Right?
Yeah, it's storylines aren't the most important thing. It's the results. Like, so yeah, like, I mean, I guess in the sense that you want the results, the storyline's important, but like we don't win or lose games in order to defeat storylines.
Yeah. All right, let's get to more questions. But before we do that, we want to tell you about Turo. Turo is the world's largest car sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car that you want, wherever you want it, from a community of local hosts. Browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget across the US, UK, Canada, and coming soon to Australia. Book a spacious SUV or minivan for a family road trip. Get a classic or luxury car for a special event, birthday, or holiday. Find affordable economy cars if you're on a budget and just need to get from A to B, or test drive that new electric vehicle that you've had your eye on for a while. Turo hosts can even deliver the car right to you. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. Forget boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo.com. All right, next question. This one comes from Jody Joe. He wants to know, can Michael Gallup return to his old form, or will the injury hold him back all season? I think a lot of people, Landon, are worried that Michael Gallup just looks like a shell of himself right now.
I think he's gotten better as the season's gone on and as he's been on the field. So I think, it'll still continue to take time, and week to week, it'll be hopefully get a little bit better. I mean, I think I'm not a doctor, so I can't really predict like exactly the trajectory of this, but I do feel like I've seen him moving a lot better than he was when he first started. So there's hope there.
I also just don't know if like playing on natural grass when it's cold out is the best situation for him. Like, I got a feeling he's going to look better here this week now that they're playing in the dome. Just my gut feeling.
I think everybody looked slow in that game on Sunday. Everybody
Except for
looked
Christian
like
Watson. He was the only guy that looked fast.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's fair.
All right, next one. This one from Ben. He wants to know, why do you believe that the Cowboys' ceiling continues to be a good team, but not a great team? What is holding them back?
Winning the games.
Wow.
I don't buy in a lot of this kind of, a psychological, like, block thing, like that they can't win big games, or like these games are hard to win. Like, and I think that that's a huge part of it. And not every team is, very few teams go in and win all the games they're supposed to. Like that's just the nature of the NFL. I think ask Buffalo. I mean, I feel like they probably feel like they should have won that game on Sunday.
Ask Kansas City. They lost to the Colts. They were double-digit favorites, against the Colts, and they lost. Ask the Eagles, double-digit favorites against Washington. Like, that's just the nature of the NFL.
We cover this team, so it's easy for us to see this. But I think that it happens all across the league.
Yeah.
And again, like it's the big game thing. It's like, well, what's your standard? Like, I mean, and how often is that goalpost moving? So, I look, the Cowboys have a great team, have a great team with lots of talent. If they can get it together and play clean football and play up to their abilities, there's good. They can beat any team in the NFL. Now, will that happen this week? Will that happen the week that they are playing the opponent that whoever dubs a worthy opponent? That's the question. But I don't believe that there's some kind of mental block or inability for this team to win big games. I just think it hasn't worked out that way. Like,
I will say one thing that the Cowboys do need to do to go from, we think they're a good team. I don't know if you and I consider them an elite team or whatever, but they've got to become just more consistent all the way around, right?
Yeah,
I saw a stat today that in Dak Prescott's 4 starts this year, those are the 4 games the defense gave up the most yards per play. Right. Like the defense gave up a ton of yards against Chicago, a ton of yards against Green Bay, and actually a lot of yards against the Lions. Like, we know that this defense can be really good, but they are a little bit inconsistent from week to week. And the offense is the same way, right? The offense scored 42 against Chicago, and then it's such a struggle to score points against Green Bay. We just need a little bit more consistency from both the units, even if it's not playing at their peak all the time. Just give us something that we can kind of hang your hat on, right?
Yeah, I think that's what we've been talking about, right? Like, even not just on an offensive level, but on a player level inside of these units, that we just need. We talked about the defensive tackles, how they were completely inconsistent up and down. Dak Prescott was inconsistent. Yeah. It felt like CeeDee Lamb was inconsistent. The offensive line blocking was inconsistent. So, and look, consistency, uniformity across snaps is not the requirement. I'm just asking for, not as many peaks and valleys constantly, just and that's like the thing, steadiness.
Like, what did the Cowboys do really, really well every single week? I mean, their pass rush is usually really good when they can get the chance to pass rush, right? Like that's usually the one thing. But even then, they had a couple moments in this game where, hey, it's 4th and 7. And there's nobody around Aaron Rodgers. Like, that's the part that's really frustrating.
Let's also, keep in mind and an eye on national trends. Like, clearly, there has been a shift in the NFL towards more running. Like, running averages given up by defenses are not just up in Dallas. It's across the league. Yeah. And it's a reaction to the idea of defenses becoming more pass centric, and that the pass is the more dangerous of the two aspects of football, and that most defenses are willing to sacrifice a little bit more in the run game in order to to be better against the pass. Now, the feared McMosier line is always haunting us, right? Like, you have to be able to have a minimum amount of run defense in order to continue to win games. But I think that the Cowboys are not the only talented team that is seeing a sharp incline in the amount of yards per carry that they're giving up. And I think that the Cowboys' own offense can show you that, as they have made a transition to try to become a more run-centric offense to attack a lot of these too high shell defenses that you're seeing that are counters to the more passing-heavy offenses of the last few years.
2 things on that. First of all, I think we need to rebrand this McMosier line. I know you feel like you're getting, gypped a little bit in the name.
A little bit. Yes, I am. McCool Mosier line is what it should be, but fine. But yeah.
The second thing is the Cowboys aren't there yet. They're not at to the point where their run defense is so bad that it's costing them games, because as you saw in the Green Bay game, this was a 28-14 game through the 4th quarter. Like, the defense, while they were getting gashed in the run, they weren't allowing big plays in the passing game. Well, when they did, that's when the game
That's when the
changed,
game
right?
changed.
They lost this game not because of the run defense. They lost it because they couldn't stop Rodgers on a 4th and 7, and they couldn't make a play on the ball, 4 or 5 different times in this game. The pass defense needs to be better, and if that's the case, they're going to be just fine on defense.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is that we talk about like all the running games that the Cowboys have to face the next few weeks. But we kind of conveniently, not talk about the quarterbacks that the Cowboys are going to be facing. I mean, obviously, Kirk Cousins is.
This is going to be the best quarterback they play, maybe the rest of the year.
Yeah, and that's saying something, right? Like outside of maybe Hurts a little bit later, it's like I think
this is going to be the best quarterback they play the rest of the year.
I think you just see that the run game is obviously an important point up to a point, but like it's definitely the lesser of the two dangerous aspects of offense.
Right. We'll get into this when we preview the Vikings game on Friday, but if the Cowboys are going to lose this game, it's going to be because Kirk Cousins is able to find Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson and Adam Thielen for big plays. It won't be because Dalvin Cook has 120 yards in the ground. Like the Cowboys will live with that. It's stopping the big plays.
Agreed.
All right, let's get to some more questions. But before we do that, we want to tell you about LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. All you have to do is add your job in the purple hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That is linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. We also wanted to tell you about our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your #1 source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer and esports. They've got it all at BetOnline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those as well on BetOnline. They're the fastest and the easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Landon, next question. This is a fun one. From @Clayton5370. Which past Dallas Cowboy all time would help this team the most right now? It's a tough question.
Yeah.
Because you could go on either side of the ball, right? Like if you had, take Bob Hayes and put him on this offense and get somebody.
I think Bob Hayes would be pretty decent. Plugging Larry Allen in at either left tackle or left guard would be
pretty nice. Those would be some nice guards to have, right?
Yeah.
Put Antonio O'Brien on the other side of CD would be great.
Again, like Deion Sanders opposite of Diggs wouldn't be terrible. Listen, I'm a huge Darren Woodson fan, but I think that Darren Woodson may be one of the only guys that's like his impact would be minimized just because you have so many safeties, right?
That's.
I would probably take Larry Allen playing left tackle, maybe, or something like that. Like that wouldn't be so bad. I wouldn't hate
Rob
that.
Petiti playing left tackle.
Yeah,
Dion would be fun. Dion would be fun because you could also play him on offense a little bit. That would be quite fun. But I think Larry Allen's probably the answer. Is there a defensive tackle you can put Bob Lilly on this?
I was just trying to think. Yeah, Bob Lilly would be good. I guess the Manster ends up playing linebacker at the end. Tony Casillas or Russell Maryland. Those guys aren't necessarily like top of the top history, but they're good players, and I wouldn't mind having them. That's for sure.
I think the answer is Larry Allen. You just put him at left guard, and then you're really running the ball. right?
Yeah,
And
maybe
then
put Larry
Tyron,
Allen as your McGovern fullback. Oh my god, really hurt some people.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. So people still want to know about Odell. What's going on with Odell? Nothing right now. The sense that I get is that he's probably still not ready to pass a physical, and he probably needs another month to get in football shape. I think that's kind of where we're at right now, right?
I'm gonna say 2 weeks at the minimum.
At
least.
minimum.
2
I
more
think
weeks.
after Thanksgiving is when
Yep.
we
I'd
start
say
hearing.
first week of December is
Yep.
probably when we start seeing.
Feels about right.
I wouldn't be surprised if the timelines for when they show up are similar to Tyron Smith, honestly.
Wouldn't doubt that. Next one from @cash5564. Dallas runs the most twists and stunts in the league, which is good at getting pressure, which we talked about. Actually, Landon, you talked about this a little bit yesterday. But how long can they continue to do this at this rate if they keep getting gashed by the run?
Well, again, it kind of goes back to our conversation, right? Like, how much does the run actually gas you? Like, and how much are you willing to sacrifice as a pass defense for all the benefits that you're getting from all the stunts and twists to be a little bit better in run defense? So,
I think we're getting close to where he needs to tone it back just a little.
He's clearly at the top end of it for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that there is something to the idea that maybe you need to kind of, especially like maybe early downs, tone it down a little bit simply because you need to make sure that you're getting opportunities to kind of fully unleash your pass rush later. And yeah, there is some risk in stunning and twisting on rundowns because if your guy doesn't get to the gap, obviously all it takes is a good angle and then the running back's gone. So yeah, I think that there is something to the idea that they should reduce it a little bit.
I don't know if against the Vikings, though. The Vikings have a really good offensive line, and I don't know if you just play them straight up if you're going to be able to create enough pressure. I think this is a game where you do want to stunt a lot.
Yeah, I do agree. And look, I still think that they should stunt a lot. I just think that maybe they need to be a little bit careful about when they're doing it on early downs.
Yeah. Last one from Pete. He wants to know, I love it when you guys have guests on your show. Do you see Locked On Cowboys getting other folks on the podcast? The answer is yes, probably more in the off season because our in-season schedule is so busy, but we would love to know who do you guys want us to talk on the podcast?
We talk about it all the time, and we have lots of buddies that we'd like to bring on and everything, but it's also kind of, we don't want it to be forced. So we want people that y'all want us to have on. And if you guys have questions for those folks, please send them as well. Like, I certainly have no problem with having more guests on. We love having guests on, but it's more about like, what exactly do you guys want us to talk about? What are we looking to have a conversation about? I think that makes it that interesting.
All right, that is it for today's show. Thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. Catch up on the biggest stories of the day in sports, plus get instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. All the same places that you get the Locked On Cowboys podcast. Follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I am at Marcus_Mosier. We've got Locked On. We've got a Locked On crossover show tomorrow with the guys over at Locked On Vikings. Make sure you're checking that out. And then Landon, you and I back on Friday to get ready for this huge game against the Vikings. Everybody's calling it Mike McCarthy's biggest game of his career with the Cowboys, as you guys saw today. So we'll see how that goes. It should be a lot of fun. So again, download the podcast and we'll see you guys right back here tomorrow.